This conference will now be recorded.
So today let us go with the next part of our course. Let us enter into this advanced Java. Even we call it as Java EE. Java EE stands for Java Enterprise Edition. This Java EE stands for what? Enterprise Edition. The main use of going with the Java EE is Java EE is used to develop web applications and enterprise applications. It is the main use of Java EE to develop web applications and enterprise applications. Then, under this Java EE, it goes with the two components of Java EE. The components are like web components, and enterprise components. These web components are used to develop web applications. Mainly for what? Web applications. And the components under this web components are servlets and JSP. JSP stands for Java Server Pages. JSP stands for what? Java Server Pages. And enterprise components, these are used to develop enterprise applications. So the meaning of enterprise applications is these are more secured, distributed means application to application interaction, transaction management. So features will be there, more features will be there for your web application. Mainly for banking applications, we go for enterprise applications, and the component is AJB. AJB stands for Enterprise Java Beans. This Enterprise Java Beans is outdated now. Long back, 10 years back only it has been outdated. Then what we are using over EJB now means Spring Framework. Nowadays, we are developing enterprise applications by using Spring, right? So in our course, we will be learning these two topics, servlets and JSP. So servlets will take 3 classes, 3 to 4 classes. Let's see how you take, and JSP will go for 3 classes. Now, so whenever we go for Java EE applications, these applications are accessed by multiple clients, means users. Whenever we want our application to be used by multiple users, we should deploy the application onto the server. So whenever you want to develop Java EE applications, we require a server. So let me write that Java EE applications are used by multiple clients, means users. And in order to make the Java EE application to be used by multiple clients, we need to deploy the application. We need to deploy the application onto the server. Meaning of deploy is like copy. To copy the application onto the server. So whenever you want to go with Java EE, we require a server. Related to Java, we are in two types of servers. Related to Java, we are in two types of servers. They are web servers and application servers. Web servers and application servers. These web servers are used to develop web applications only. They are used to develop what? Web applications only, means these servers can understand servlets and JSP only. And the examples of web servers are, the popular web server is Apache Tomcat, Adobe JRUN, Jetty, like this. Coming to application servers, used to develop web applications and enterprise applications. Web and enterprise applications. That means it can understand servlets, JSP, and even EJB also. That means web servers are subset of application servers. And the popular web servers are like Oracle, Glassfish, Oracle, WebLogic, IBM, WebSphere, Red Hat, JBoss, like this. Okay. So in our course, we'll be going with this Tomcat server. So if you know one server, how to configure in Eclipse, the same way we are going to configure other servers. Okay. So tomorrow we'll be going with the practical part. At that time, I'll show how to configure Tomcat server in Eclipse. At that time, even I'll be elaborating how to go with other servers also. Right. Yeah. So this is the basic introduction of Java EE. Any questions, anyone?
One question. What's the difference between web applications and enterprise applications?
So enterprise applications are web applications only, but they are what? More secured, distributed, and transaction management. Mainly we apply this for banking applications. So banking applications need to be secured, right?
Okay,
Right?
sir.
There you go with the transaction management, right? So what is the meaning of transaction? If you are transferring money from one account to other account, or when you are paying a bill, that we call transaction. So the first the amount will get debited from your account and that will get credited into other account. So then only the complete transaction is completed. So if the amount is debited from your account but it is not credited in other account, means the transaction is failure, right? So the amount should come back to your account back again. Those things only we do by using transaction management. Clear, Kalyani?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Right, mainly for banking applications we apply this enterprise applications. Okay. Now let us start off with servlets. So before we go to servlets, a small question, like what is the use of HTML? Anyone? What is the use of HTML? Use it to develop?
For websites, it's
Yeah, static
skeleton.
web pages, right? It is static. Static word is important here. To develop static web pages. To add dynamic content to the web page, we use JavaScript. But by using JavaScript, connecting to databases, transaction management, providing security, all those things are difficult for us. All those things are difficult. So that's the reason we call them as web pages only. When you say application, we should be able to connect to database. We should be able to manage multiple users. Those all things will be there. Okay. And the JavaScript is executed on client machine only. On the browser end only, the code will get executed, which is not secured. So that is a place where we go for servlets. It's for web applications. You can say servlets are Java programs. Servlets are Java programs which are used to develop server-side dynamic web applications. What is the main use of servlets? Servlets are used to, servlets are what? Java programs which are used to develop server side. This word is very, very important. So when you take JavaScript, they are also for dynamic only, but they are client side. The application will be running on the client browser. Whereas here the application will be running on server machine. And they are mainly for web applications. We are having other technologies also which are used to develop server-side dynamic web applications. Technologies used to develop server-side dynamic web applications. They are coming to Java, servlets and JSP. These two are related to Java. We are having ASP.NET, .NET related. we are having PHP, we are having Django. This is the coding is done using Python. The code we do using Python here. Right? In our codes, we'll be going with servlets in JSP. So let us go with servlets. So today all theoretical words only. Tomorrow only we'll go enter into the practical part. But to understand that, we should have this background to discuss. Servlets hierarchy. Let us understand using a diagram. Servlets hierarchy. Coming to servlets, the topmost interface under servlet is servlet interface. The topmost interface under servlet is what? Servlet interface. Whenever we say interface, in interface, what type of methods it contains? The methods present in interface by default, they are what type of methods?
Um, Private methods, I think.
Not private. Right. Abstract
Default.
methods. Yeah, by
Absolutely.
default, the methods present in interface are abstract methods. Code Java is very important. Never forget that. So, servlet interface methods. By default, the methods here is abstract. The methods present in servlet interface are init, service, destroy, get servlet info, get servlet config, get servlet context. Don't worry the meaning of these methods now. I'll be elaborating later. So these are the methods present in your servlet interface, and all these are abstract methods here. Now, under this servlet interface, we are having a subclass that is generic servlet class. Generic servlet class. This generic servlet class implements servlet interface. The diagrammatic symbol for implements is dotted triangle arrowhead. Dotted triangle arrowhead means implements here. This is the diagrammatic representation of implements. So this generic servlet class implements servlet interface. So when a class implements an interface, do we need to override all methods of this interface? Yes, right? That's the point we have discussed. Whenever a class extends an abstract class or implements an interface, we need to override all methods of interface or abstract classes. That is all abstract methods. So in this generic servlet class, all methods of servlet interface are overridden except the service method. Except the service method means this service method is still abstract here. Service method is still abstract. So when a class implements an interface, and if you are not overriding all the methods, then what keyword we have to use before the class? What keyword we have to use before class now? Simply just attending classes will not work out. You have to work out on this compulsory. Code Java is very, very important.
Sir, what
Object
was your question again?
Yeah, so when a class implements an interface, and if you are not overriding all methods, so in this one, service method is not overridden, right? So still service method is abstract. Then what keyword we have to use before class?
Um, abstract class.
Right, very good. We have to use what keyword before class? Abstract. Never forget, okay? So
Yes.
whenever a class implements an interface or extends an abstract class, if you are not overriding all abstract methods, then we have to make your class once again as what? Abstract. Then,
Yes.
so this generic servlet is what? It's an abstract class here. Now, under generic servlet, we are having one more subclass, HTTP servlet class. This HTTP servlet class extends HTTP servlet class extends generic servlet. The diagrammatic symbol for extends is and solid line and triangle arrow it here. Then, so when HTTP class extends generic servlet, which method need to be overridden here now? Which method we have to override? Which method is still abstracting generic servlet class?
Service method.
Service method. So this service method is overridden here. Service method is overridden. Right? Now, so this HTTP servlet class does not have any abstract methods. There are no abstract methods in HTTP servlet class. Even though there are no abstract methods in HTTP servlet class, they made this class as abstract. The reason is, can we create objects for abstract classes? Can we create objects for abstract classes?
Yes, we can. No, we
No,
can't
we cannot
create
create objects
objects.
for abstract classes, only references, only reference.
Yes.
Like we have seen a vehicle equal to new car, like that, only reference, referring to subclass object. So Java people want to form a rule that, whenever a programmer want to create a servlet, they cannot use either generic servlet class or HTTP servlet class directly. So we cannot create objects of it. To form a rule that not to create objects for these classes, they made this one as abstract. So once you make it as abstract, compulsory we have to create subclasses. So Java people want to form a rule that whenever a programmer want to create their own servlet, they have to create a subclass which extends either generic servlet or HTTP servlet class compulsory. To form that rule only, they made this class as abstract. And when we go with HTTP servlet, we generally override two methods, doGet and doPost. Just recap your object-oriented, Java object-oriented part 5. In part 5, I have elaborated about what is abstract class and what is interface. Recap that part 5 object-oriented, Java object-oriented. Then after that, if you come back to this diagram now, you can understand very easily what is happening. Right? Now, you will be knowing about more about this diagram once again as we start going with the coding part. Now, the next one, servlet architecture. Servlet architecture. Just a minute. Let me draw this diagram. Very simple one. Servlet architecture. So whenever we want to work with servlets, we have to deploy that servlet where in a server. So we require a server. In server, we deploy the servlets. Deploy means like copy. So who is client for web applications? Who will be the client for web applications? If I want to open Gmail or Facebook or Amazon, what we should open on your operating system? On your system, what we should open?
Browser.
Right. Good. Browser, right? You have to open browser. So browser is the client for web applications. Then from browser, whatever the data you are sending to server, that we call it as request. The data what we call a request. Like example, when we open browser and type the URL like www.gmail.com, that means you are making a request to Gmail server. And what Gmail server is going to do back? It is going to display the login page. So whatever it is displaying back onto the client browser, we call it as what? A response. Two important words, a request, a response. So once we get the response, that is login page, where it will ask username and password. Once we type username and once we type password, when you click on login, the username and password will go as request data to server, and in response what we get? The inbox page. So the data which goes from browser to server is called as request. The data which is coming from server to browser is called as response. Two important words here. Now, let us move to the next topic. Very, very important one. Servlet lifecycle. Very important intro question. Servlet lifecycle. The meaning of lifecycle is a collection of methods which are executed in an order automatically. By the servlet container. Means your server only. So your server will execute these methods automatically, and that too in an order. And the lifecycle methods are init, service, and destroy. The lifecycle methods only. So here we are having three methods now: servlet interface methods, init, service, destroy. These three methods are considered as lifecycle methods. These methods we should not invoke; it will get invoked automatically. When they get invoked, let us understand. Here, init method is invoked called only once when servlet is loaded. It's called what? Only once when servlet is loaded. That means whenever you make a request to a servlet for first time, init method will get invoked automatically. And what type of code we write in this method is, generally we establish database connections. What type of code we write here? We do database connections. Now, service method called for every request. Service method is called for what? Every request. Let me elaborate more on request once again. Let us suppose if you are going with a banking application like citibank.com, you are opening citibank.com. So once we type the URL citibank.com, you are making a request to Citibank. In response, it shows login page. Once we type username and password, it's going to show the account details. So by clicking on login is a request. Clicking on transfer funds is a request. Clicking on pay bills is a request. Clicking on mini statement is a request. So for every request, it enters into service method, and the code in the service method will get executed. So the logic behind your request, we have to keep it in service method. Okay. Destroy method called only once when servlet is destroyed. Means when we click on logout button or when we close the browser, it's going to invoke destroy method. And what type of code we write here? Generally, we close database connections. Type of code we write here? We do the closing operations. There. So in the next classes, I'll be showing this example. I'll be showing the complete code by connecting to databases using lifecycle methods. I'll show this one also practically. Now let us see how to create a servlet. Creating a servlet. So we can create servlet in two ways. By creating a class which is a subclass of generic servlet class. We have to create a class which extends generic servlet class, or by creating a class which extends HTTP servlet class. Either you can go with generic servlet or HTTP servlet. Now, let us initially see generic servlet class using generic servlet class. Just we have to create a class. The class must be public because we access from outside the browser. So public class. I'm going with the name like welcome servlet extends generic servlet. When a class extends generic servlet, which method we need to override? I'm showing the diagram also to you where you can answer it very easily.
HTTP
Which
servlet.
method we need? Yeah, which method? Repeat once again, Swati.
Service method.
Service method.
Very good. Yeah, service method. We have to override which method? Service method. So here, whenever a class extends generic servlet, in generic servlet, which method is still abstract? Service. So that method need to be overridden here. So override service method. This service method takes two arguments: servlet request, servlet response. I said no, two important words. The data which goes from browser to servlet is managed with request object. Servlet back to browser is response. Then this method throws servlet exception and IO exception. This method throws what exception? Servlet exception and IO exception. And in this we handle the request. Here we are going to handle the request. So the code behind your request, we keep it over here. Now, using HTTP servlet class. Using HTTP. How to go with HTTP is just create a class, welcome servlet, extends HTTP servlet. So when a class extends HTTP servlet, we need not override any methods compulsory because HTTP servlet does not have any abstract methods. That generally, when we go with HTTP servlet, we generally override two methods: do get and do post. So let us go with the methods here. Public void do get, which takes argument HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response. This method throws servlet exception and IO exception. This method throws servlet exception and IO exception. Here we handle the request. right? Then we can even override do post also. So when to think of do get, when to think of do post, and what is the advantage of overriding both the methods, we'll be discussing in the next classes. Right? Don't worry about coding part today. Now, one small note: interface HTTP servlet request extends servlet request. Interface HTTP servlet request. This HTTP servlet request extends servlet request. Similar way, interface HTTP servlet response extends servlet response. By seeing this note, we can easily say that HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response are what? Interfaces. Then what about this? Servlet request, is it an interface or class? Servlet response, is it an interface or class? Can anyone answer this?
It's a class.
It's a class. Then you are not good with core part, not good with object oriented. Let me write one more small note. I have given this. Class to class, which keyword we use? In between class to class, which keyword?
Extends.
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 Class to interface, which keyword?
Implements.
Very good. Implements. Interface to interface?
Implements. Use for this.
Interface to interface? Extends only, okay?
Extends.
Only class to interface implements. Okay? Interface to interface extends. Interface to class, which keyword? Interface to class. Error. Not possible, okay? So now by seeing this note, you only say, is it a class? No?
No.
Is it a class? No, right? It goes with error. So what it is now?
Interface.
Servlet request, servlet
Interface.
response, what they are? Interfaces. So these are very important. So please recap object oriented once again before you join the class tomorrow, okay? Just recap, just to pull out some small time, just to go through the notes at least, okay? Right? Next point, generic servlet voice, HTTP servlet. Generic servlet voice, HTTP servlet. The word generic means different. Generic servlet is used for different protocols like FTP, SMTP, HTTP, etc. Whereas HTTP servlet is used for HTTP protocol only. So HTTP is only for HTTP. The expansions are like FTP means file transfer protocol, SMTP, simple mail transfer protocol, HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol. So nowadays, whenever we go with any web application, when you want to open any websites, it automatically goes with HTTP. So even the tools like Eclipse will use HTTP only. So in our codes, we'll be going with only HTTP servlet. Okay. So this is the basic introduction of servlets. Let us continue tomorrow where we go with the practical part. But before you join tomorrow's class, please remember, try to recap your object oriented. If not possible, compulsory you have to recap today's class. Today's class is important for tomorrow's practical one. So tomorrow we'll be seeing how to download Tomcat server, how to configure Tomcat server in Eclipse, then how to develop a dynamic web project, and we will be creating a servlet in web project. So that part we are going to discuss in tomorrow's class. Don't miss out tomorrow's class. Okay. Any questions, anyone?
No, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.